Welcome back to the Girls in Movement podcast, where we're kicking off this week's show with a very interesting founder and now an influencer, I suppose. So our last sort of episodes and of the podcast series were all about introducing founders and influencers, but today we may go, I suppose, a little more topical. Today's guest I'm very excited to talk to, not only because of his fashion line, but I suppose why he is well and truly influencing kind of Asian and Indian culture, breaking that stereotype. I came across Ayush, this particular designer, over Instagram after he was featured in Huffington Post, which must have been a surreal moment, but we'll come on to that. And the title of the post was all about a designer challenges stereotypes that dark-skinned South Asian women can't wear bright colours. And I suppose I instantly thought I have to reach out and get this guy onto my podcast. So to me, challenging stereotypes in the Indian culture is hard enough, but bringing fashion into it is even more satisfying and makes it better, I suppose. So let's crack on, I suppose. I'd like to give a really warm welcome to Ayush onto the Girls in podcast. How are you, Ayush? Welcome.
I'm very well. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts here.
Great. No, honestly, thank you. So, I mean, we'll start off with me and Ayush have never spoken before. This is a complete kind of brand new conversation which you're listening to right now. So it'd be really good to know, I suppose, your background and to your sort of journey to where you are now and how you made it into the fashion world, I suppose.
I think it all started for me properly around 4 years ago. I've always been inclined to I have a quite creative streak to me, and I've always been inclined to do things differently. And when I was little, I used to just make clothes for my mother and my family members. But then I moved to UK to do my master's, and I've been here for around 15 years, and I used to miss that. So 4 years ago, one of my friends suggested, "You miss it so much. Why do you not just do something?" And I was visiting India, so there I just pulled some pieces together and we posted it on Instagram, and it got a very good response.
Yeah.
And the first woman who bought my pieces paid around 200 euros from Germany, and never thought people would actually want to buy my clothes. And that's how I started, with just £300 and 4 years ago, and one thing led to another, and that's where I am now.
Amazing. And is your do you get most of your business through Instagram, if you don't mind me asking, or is it kind of are people recommending you, would you say?
I think it's a bit of both. I don't have a website, nor do I have a store, or I don't sell through any retail channels. Most of my business comes through social media, and I think a lot of word of mouth has taken place as well, which has helped it grow.
Yeah, it's the power of social media completely. I mean, I was kind of reading up on yourself and I was thinking, wow, this guy doesn't even have a website for his kind of clothes or anything. But I think it's great. I mean, you can get a feel of the fashion that you're providing all through your Instagram feed. And also, I'll post the details of Ayush's social media along with the YouTube at the bottom. But I suppose my next question is, what made you want to kind of break the stereotype of Indian girls when it comes to fashion? Did you have that intention at the start, or did it just kind of happen as you were going along?
I think there were a few reasons. Firstly, when I decided to launch a brand of my own, it was very important for me to bring something out that people could relate to, that people could associate with. Not everybody, looks like those stereotypical fashion models and celebrities that we see in magazines and films. And I believe we all have some sort of responsibility when we have a following on social media to portray an image that's achievable, that would empower people, that would make them feel happy about themselves and not the other way around. And if I had portrayed things which were unrealistic, I would be kind of working with impressionable minds, giving them goals or aims that were unachievable, and hence and following which they would be unhappy. And I didn't want to do that. And commercially as well, it made more sense for me to have a realistic approach to fashion, because real people who would pay for my clothes don't look like what we see
Yeah.
on fashion models and celebrities. They've got 4 or 5 makeup artists and stylists running after them, and what you see is a byproduct of a lot of people working together to create an image that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And secondly, I have lived in India for initially in the early years of my life, and I have seen how people are made to feel that they are not as beautiful as they can be or they should be, because the perception of beauty is so contrived and it's so wrongly calculated. You have to be fair, skinny. You have to be. People think that what they've been told and taught to believe in is beautiful, which is not the case. So I think, but I thought to myself, if I kind of started showing that anybody and everybody could look beautiful, it's just a way of presenting yourself, and hopefully it will help those people who are not sure of themselves or who've had terrible times because they've made to feel differently, would feel good about things. And also I'm hoping that people who think that way would start looking at things a bit differently and be a bit more liberal and more tolerant and more kind to themselves and to other people around them.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I did it.
Lovely. That's music to my ears, because I mean, it brings me on to my next question as well. I mean, you can talk about this, I suppose, in reference to the UK or India. I mean, I'll be keen to get your insight in both, but what do you think are the biggest problems when it comes to diversity in the fashion industry, whether that's UK or India?
I think the fashion industry is a very unforgiving, ruthless,
Yeah.
kind of full of vanity, where I think ethos and morals probably don't exist. It's very fickle. It's very fast moving, and at sometimes I find the whole thing very fake. And I know this sounds rather stupid coming from me, but I have never considered myself to be a part of the industry because
Okay.
I don't think you need to be a part of the industry. For me, it's always been about doing things my way, and the reason why it is the way it is because it's so short-lived and it's so influenced by what certain A-listed people in the industry are doing, be it selected few designers or Bollywood celebrities, and it's all about following trends rather than creating one.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem is, and it's so easy with technology these days to change things completely for them to look so different, which is not reality. And in the fashion industry, that happens quite a lot with retouching. Somebody who is, of a darker skin tone is instantly made to look much fairer through Adobe Photoshop, and what you see is not the, not what the reality is about, and that kind of makes people feel bad about themselves, and that's the reason. It's very sad, to be honest. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, and I think what's quite sad. I mean, I was reading in an article that someone had written about yourself is this whole idea that if you're fairer in the sort of Indian culture, it's looked upon to be better than if you're darker, which I just think is ridiculous. I mean, I'm Indian myself,
Yeah,
and I completely get that, because it has always been a thing. Oh, she's a lot fairer. Even when a child's born, you'll always go, oh, she's so fair, that's great, and you're like, what? It's
yeah,
mind.
it's a deep-rooted belief that from a very young age we are made to believe that if fairer people belong to a better
Yeah.
part of the society, they are much more appealable. They are much more sought after. There's almost an instant connection with fairer people. They almost looked at differently. So if someone is not born fair, and the mother is told, "Oh my God, God knows what's going to happen to your daughter or son. Wish they were a bit fairer." Girls are given, fairness screens and other home remedies from a very young age. There's an instant deep-rooted belief which is placed in their minds and hearts, making them feel that they are not, they're inferior for some reason, and they grow with that belief. So when they grow up as individuals, they already lack self-belief and confidence, and they turn out to be people who are not sure of themselves. And the problem there lies with our family morals when it comes to the perception of dark skin. And I have seen people I know in India being treated differently, and even grown-up ladies who are married and stuff. A lot of times when their daughters are getting married, and they're told, "Hope your daughter doesn't give birth to a darker skin a girl or a boy, and it's really sad. And I have had people who've messaged me saying things like they have dark skin, they're not sure about themselves, what they should wear and stuff. So I thought, if I could help anybody in some way or the other, why shouldn't I? The fashion perhaps has a bigger voice than it's ever recognized, and I think we can use this platform of fashion and style to influence people, to empower them, to change mindsets and challenge prejudices, because it is such an intrinsic part of what we believe in, and it's so relatable that people instantly recognize and associate with anything that comes with style and fashion. So if it's used effectively, it can bring a lot of good changes.
Yeah, 100%. And do you feel with kind of Instagram, do you ever get any sort of controversial comments with the work you're doing? Because from my point of view, I think when I look at your Instagram feed, the models on there are so beautiful and they just look like really natural photos, which I love. But do you ever get anything like controversial towards the work that you're trying to achieve and what you're doing?
The thing is, someone or the other will always be unhappy somewhere in the world. That's the
True.
way we live in. So yes, there is always somebody who takes a disliking to one thing or the other, or has some opinion or comment to make, and most of the time I ignore them. Sometimes I feel it's important to challenge them, because by challenging them, you almost kind of make them think twice, and other people who have the same beliefs as them think two times before trolling my account or saying horrible things about anybody who has been portrayed on my page, because sometimes they'll make comments about a spot on the model's back, or the model looking very dark, and they use phrases like Kalima and Black Goddess and all the rest of it, and I think it's very hurtful for people, not just for me, but people who have been portrayed in those images, because it lacks their confidence. So 9 out of 10 times I'll either delete the comment or block the person, but occasionally I will challenge them, just to make sure that people realize that if they have to come to my account and they have to follow my page, they have to be respectable, tolerant, and kind to other people. That kind of trolling won't work here. I won't accept it. I'll challenge it. And if need be, I will block them as well.
Yeah, completely. And I think they have to understand kind of the morals behind this business that you're trying to create, and the kind of ideas around this business is that it's not just fashion, as you're saying. It's moving away from the fashion industry and starting something new, and not going by what's being put out there.
I said I've never been a part of the fashion industry. I don't consider myself to be fashion industry. I use my clothes to tell a story. I use them as a way to show my film. If you want to hear my story, you're more than welcome. If you don't want to hear my story, please go. If you're hearing my story and you don't like what you're hearing, please go again. But if you want to come with my journey, not everything. Everybody has an opinion, and you have a right to your opinion. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. That's what I say. And when you're not asked for your opinions, keep it to yourself. Don't use my page to share your hatred and animosity in the world. We have enough of that as it is.
Exactly.
Try and let us be a bit kind to everybody, and that's what I try to do.
Exactly, and it takes a lot for even just a model, and for an individual to come forward and have their picture taken, and then having that kind of negativity is not nice. But let's move on to something where people did want to hear your story, and we'll move on to the press from Huffington Post, and since then sort of Indian Express and other presses come to you and asked you about your story. How did that feel? Is that something that's happened quite recently, or?
Well, I think I have been using darker models and bigger models and unconventional models for quite a while now. I think recently, I don't know how, I think AJ Plus in America found something that I did, and then they did a video on me, and that has spiraled into a big thing. And since then, I've had a lot of inquiries. I was quite zapped and perplexed when that happened, because in my eyes, I was just doing what I thought was the most natural thing to do for me as an artist and for me, for my business. But apparently, it wasn't. It was something that people didn't expect to happen, and that created a big stir, which I was quite amazed with the reaction, because I never looked at this to be something different. I just thought, well, that's what I want to do, because that's the most natural thing to me, and I believe in it. But apparently it's caused, some people call it a revolution. And then unknowingly, if I landed up helping other people and creating a positive stir, it can only mean good things. I was extremely pleased and pleasantly surprised.
It's really positive. I mean, I watched that video from AJ Plus. If you don't follow them already on Facebook, they're really good to just getting the story out there from across the world, whatever the press is on. But yeah, I saw the video and it was really interesting. And then I read the article and thought, and that's why I thought it's interesting. Did kind of Ayush kind of start this business to tackle these kind of challenges and the stereotypes, but it seems like it's just kind of snowballed as you've kind of developed even further, which is it's great. It's really good. I mean, you're not only doing what you love, but you're trying to conquer a stereotype in India and Indian culture, which is very hard, but positive as well.
Oh, thank you.
In terms of, so I come from the startup world, and which is challenging in itself, but it's all about kind of building a business for the long term. What's been the most challenging thing for you when starting your business, would you say?
I think getting myself known out there has been very challenging, because in this day and age there is so much of competition, and for me, I have no website. I'm not in India, where the main hub for Indian fashion is, and I have never kind of used paid for advertising. So for me, the challenge was to create a name for my brand, to grow organically, because I did not want just to have followers who did not believe in what I did. Not every single follower of mine is a customer, but every single follower that I have probably likes an element of what I do. A lot of people just follow my page, not necessarily to buy things, but to read my messages, read my stories, connect with me, because I'm always quite descriptive in what I say, share my passion. So I think that was challenging to start with, but my strategy was to grow organically, and that has paid results in a way, because I have grown slowly, but I have grown with quite. It has been a sturdy growth. The foundations have been quite strong, which I think is quite important. Very difficult, but very important.
And I think with fashion as well, especially with, say, Indian fashion, when people are buying kind of their own outfits, etc. I mean, I only wear Indian clothes, in all honesty, when it's a wedding or an event. So buying Indian clothes is very hard in terms of you want to go and feel the clothes, but you don't actually want to go through the pain of going to the shop or several shops all in a row. So when I started seeing, my mum showed me once that, oh, you can actually, the lady actually does a video on Facebook, or someone's doing video on Instagram showing you what the clothes look like, or taking a picture. I thought, that is going to change the way people shop for Indian clothes. And it has. I mean, you don't have a physical store, but people still buy from you. And when they first have that good experience, you've kind of built that relationship to say, okay, come back and buy from me again, which is great. And that's the joy of having organic customers from day one, I suppose.
Yes, I still have that problem where a lot of people say, can I come and see your clothes, or can we feel it and touch it? And that's fine, but it's just not my business model, because as I said, I am so passionate about what I do. I give very descriptive narrations of what they look like and feel like. And I do appreciate that people have to spend a lot of money and they would have to think 3 times. But online shopping is either for you or it's not for you. So there is no middle ground with it.
There's some really exciting stuff in the world of technology when it comes to retail, and this whole idea of stepping into, I think Dubai is trying to do this, where you can actually walk into a mall on your phone and it's all virtual. You can step into the store, but it's all pretty much live. Now, obviously, you can't feel the clothes, but this whole idea that you can actually order online via that website, but it feels like you're virtually shopping. So in terms of retail and technology and what's happening, it's really, it is being revolutionized, which is great. I suppose, just to finish, a couple of kind of last questions, but what's been the sort of highlight for you this year, and what's exciting that's coming up?
I think the highlight has been, as you said a minute ago, about a lot of people noticing the fact that I have tried to do things which are making a change, and that I never expected that. So now, when the year is almost coming to an end, when I look back, I never thought that me using unconventional models would bring so much of change and get me known in a way which I never envisaged. So that's been quite exciting for me. As far as what is coming in the next few months or so, well, this might sound strange, but I never have a plan. I just go with the flow. So I think I'm just going to continue to do what I do. I always try to present things in a different way, and I'll continue to challenge things that I believe strongly about, and that's all. I mean, like, there's nothing extraordinarily different that is planned, but keep watch the space. I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised, hopefully.
No, that's good. That's what I like to hear. I love to know when a business doesn't really have a plan, but it's going well. That's music to my
I
ears.
never had a plan. I never have a plan. I think overanalysis is paralysis, so I don't overanalyze things. I just go with the flow.
Good.
Because, as I said, I'm not here to prove a point. I'm not here to be achieving something. I'm just here to tell my story. So sometimes things will go wrong, but that's reality. So I don't need a plan, to be honest.
Good stuff. So, I mean, talking of plans and when things go wrong, if you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Sorry, I didn't get that. What do you mean?
If you could give your younger self, kind of you when you were a lot younger, any sort of advice, whether
Right, okay.
business or life, what would it be?
I would have said to myself to start what I did 4 years ago, to start it 15 years ago when I really wanted to go and study design. And I wish I had gone to design school, but at that time, like all other children in India, I was scared to pursue my dream of fashion and styling because I was told I have to become an engineer, lawyer, doctor, or something like that, because there was no future in what I believed in. And I wish if I was younger, I would have told myself, go follow your dreams. And if I did that 20 years ago, I think it would be a different story.
That's really nice. It's a very nice way to end this podcast. And I think that's one thing to take away, is that you may, in Indian culture especially, you kind of have this view of whatever gender you are, whether that's male, female, what your kind of path will be and what your career will be. So kind of going, not going against it, but kind of doing what you love is rare. Even now today, I think it's rare to find someone. I think they always turn around and say, oh well, actually if I could go back 10 years, I maybe would have done this. So I think you're clearly making up for lost time, which is great. So keep doing what you're doing, Ayush, and thank you so much for being on the Girls In podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So if anyone wants to listen to the podcast from today and any others in this series, then just go to our YouTube channel. This will, of course, be on Twitter and Instagram. And stay tuned for next week's podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much.